guys, how's it going? MasterBucks here, and welcome to this, the 2020-2021 Premier League predictions. Alright then people, off the back of my extremely successful Premier League predictions last season, you don't need to look into it, they were amazing. Absolutely spotless. The new Premier League season is right around the corner, only a few days away actually at the time of recording this. I am super excited. The previous season was one of the most unpredictable really ever. Like, it was, looking back on it, when we made the predictions to how the table actually finished, it was one of the craziest seasons ever in all reality. And I have a suspicion it's going to be the same again this season, especially involving the mid-table teams, relegation teams. It's going to be a free-for-all. But let's get started, as we always do, ladies and gentlemen, going from bottom to top. Starting with the relegation teams, we're going to go in 20th place with Fulham. Now, yes, last season I ended up saying it was Sheffield United, but to be fair, so did like 95% of the rest of the people that did Premier League predictions, so I do not apologise and will not apologise for putting them in there. I feel a lot more comfortable about getting Fulham's position correct than I do about when I put Sheffield in 20th last season. I don't exactly expect them to survive. I don't think they're particularly well equipped to survive. I mean, you've got, this team that seems a lot more like a team that'll grind out games. They're not going to be as flamboyant as they were when they were first in the Premier League a few seasons ago, when they bought like an insane amount of players, 10, 12 players, and just never really able to come up with a cohesive unit. They could maybe cause a few upsets, get a bit of positivity going early. That could change things for them. But right now, I can't really see myself giving any other team, unfortunately, this 20th spot. In 19th place, I have another team that's recently been promoted, West Brom. I know that the Premier League is very favourable on these tough, sturdy teams that are difficult to break down. You look at Burnley and Sheffield United and how well they've done with that sort of system, but I just don't think West Brom just have the Premier League ability to stay up. I think Slaven Bilic could potentially be, early shout, maybe the first manager that might end up getting the sack, potentially. Maybe Roy Hodgson, I don't know, but poor form since the restart for them as well in the Championship. They're not coming in the Premier League with an awful lot of hype. I see them in 19th for me. 18th, we're going to go with Crystal Palace. Now, Palace have, been able to survive in the Premier League for so many seasons now, but I think I get a suspicion this could be it for them. They were the lowest scorers bar Norwich last season in the Premier League. Since the restart, they've had horrid form. They've lost like all of their 8 Premier League games except for one, and that was a draw. So the last 8 Premier League games, they've only gotten 1 point from. I get the feeling, like I mentioned before, Roy Hodgson could potentially go either forcefully or he may voluntarily step aside. I get the feeling he might retire from management, if not this season, then soon. And not only that, but their main man, Zaha, his production kind of fell off toward the end of last season too. He may bounce back, but I get the feeling that Palace could be in the Championship next season. So now for all the teams that I think are safe but are still in that relegation battle. We've got Leeds in 17th. Yes, I think they will be the only team coming up that do indeed survive. They've been handed a pretty tough start, and they could still have a decent little showing in their first few games, but regardless, I still kind of maybe see them falling off a little toward the end of the season, as is typically what they do, except for previous season where they're actually able to hold on and secure automatic promotion. They should be a very exciting team to watch, obviously, under Bielsa as well. I think they'll be a very good side to watch if you are a neutral, but I see themselves I see themselves actually having a maybe decent start, falling off a little toward the end, but just surviving. That might, I don't know, maybe it's the flip of that, but I do think they will stay up. 16th is Brighton. Now, this is typically about where they have finished for the last few seasons. 15th, 17th, probably 15th again. But making some good signings here. Brighton, you've got Ben White that they were able to secure from Leeds, who looks quite decent. Veltman from Ajax and Lallana on a free as well. So some very good recruitment right there. They got their most ever Premier League points last season under Graham Potter. And I said in my Premier League prediction video last season that I wasn't too sure about Graham Potter because he wasn't super experienced coming into the job. But I think he's done a reasonable gig with Brighton. For crying out loud, their best Premier League season ever, or their most points ever. So you've got to give it to them. They do have a lot of veteran players, some very, very older players in their team. You wonder if they're too old, but I think they'll find a way to stay up again this season. In 15th place, we've got Aston Villa. Now, last season, they spent over £2 200 million or close to 200 million, and almost all of that money, almost all of those signings were pretty lackluster. Wesley, Douglas Luiz, El Ghazi, and Jota, maybe not all of them were terrible, but not amazing. I get the feeling I've already spoke about Hodgson and Bilic. I think maybe Dean Smith could potentially be in some jeopardy too if they don't start well anyway. They could potentially get Ollie Watkins. That'd be a very big signing for them. If they were able to get Ollie Watkins, I think he's definitely one of those players that can, turn his championship ridiculous tally into a good amount of Premier League goals as well. So I get the feeling that Aston Villa now, after surviving their first season, they have a chance to settle and get a bit of a platform going in the Premier League. In 14th place, we've got West Ham. Now, they have been able to secure Susek, who was a very big player for them. I thought he was quite decent personally, but they have also lost a lot of players as well. They've got quite a tougher start to the Premier League too as well, which I guess is maybe concerning for them, but I don't know. They do have good players regardless of the fact with, you got Anderson, you got Fornals, Declan Rice, as well as Antonio, who had a really good finish toward the end of last season. So I think they've got quality in their team, so hopefully finish a little bit above some teams when it comes to that relegation. I also have a sneaky suspicion, I don't know why, about West Ham this season. I mean, not a lot on paper screams that they're going to do incredibly well, considering that they nearly got relegated last season, but I just have this weird feeling that there might be a West Ham potential, almost David Moyes resurgence. We saw Brendan Rodgers going to Leicester, doing an amazing job there. Maybe David Moyes might potentially have a chance to rebuild his reputation in the Premier League this season. In 13th place, lucky 13th, we have got Newcastle United. I am putting Newcastle in 13th as, if you don't know, I'm a Newcastle supporter. I was genuinely about ready to put us on the fringes of relegation, but I feel like it's kind of turned around with a handful of signings that have been made. Like Callum Wilson, I think, is a huge one. We, of course, were rolling with Joe Linton, who I thought on paper would have been a decent fit, but he hasn't been able to really integrate himself into the team all too well and only scored like a very finite amount of goals. And I think Callum Wilson with Alan Saint-Maximin and Almiron, that pacey counter-attack when we've got a solid back line behind it, I swear, that team on paper is there, and that team on paper could push into the top 10. Not only that, they're potentially signing Jamal Lewis, who would be a great left back as well. You've got Ryan Fraser from Bournemouth as well, who is, by the way, just quietly, a top 5 assister in the last 2 Premier League seasons combined, for crying out loud. So don't underestimate him. I just wonder if Steve Bruce is going to be able to get the best out of this team. I'm not sure if he will, but even if he won't be able to get the absolute best out of it, he's still got, 10 plus years of Premier League experience, but I don't think he'll end up getting this team relegated. Surely he couldn't manage that. And despite the fact a bad preseason has been had by Newcastle, I do believe that relegation should be avoidable, maybe not super comfortably, but 13th. Now in 12th place, we have got Burnley. Burnley and another team that, spoiler, coming after this, Sheffield United, just going to say it. They have really just made me change the way I do these predictions. That strong, sturdy, well-drilled, well-coached, cohesive squad that maybe doesn't have a lot of incredible players on their team. Like, I will honestly look to go with them over maybe a not as well managed team that just has a lot of star players. Like, that's maybe why I put West Ham a little bit higher up in previous seasons. Burnley have failed, unfortunately, for them to sign or to re-sign some of their better players. They've lost a handful of them, and they do seem to be a team that, fit the mold of that stubborn side I was talking about, of course, what Sean Dyche has done with them for the last God knows how many seasons now, and not really bringing any new signings in makes things interesting, but 12th for Burnley. Sheffield United, though, as I mentioned before, I think are the team that'll finish in 11th, obviously had an amazing start to the Premier League, but since the restart, they did fall off quite a, they did fall off quite a fair bit. They also had a lack of goal scoring last season, despite the fact they finished so high up, so I wonder how they're going to go when their main strikers are Mousset and McBurney. I don't particularly think they've made any signings in the attacking department. They've bolstered their already pretty strong defense with Ethan Ampadu and a few other defenders from, I think, Derby County. So I think, again, they're going to be one of those tough teams to beat, to break down, but I don't know if they're going to have as good a season as they had last time out. But, even 11th, to be honest, I think it's kind of generous me putting Sheffield United this high this season, but I think it's more to do with the fact that I just kind of have a bit of a lack of faith with all the other teams behind them. Now we move into the top 10, and starting off in 10th is Southampton, who, by the way, just quietly had the 6th best record in the year of 2020. You know, they got absolutely battered by Leicester 9-0 and completely turned their season around. They have an amazing away record. Danny Ings obviously did his thing. And I just wonder if Danny Ings will be able to have another big year, or at least close to, because let's be real, if he is not firing like he did last season, then Southampton could potentially freefall many positions. It's a tricky one whenever you've got a team like that are so reliant on one guy up top to get all the goals. It does make things interesting, but I'm going to pop them in 10th, just for the fact that their form alone has been incredibly impressive. And I think Southampton are still, even if Ings isn't doing great, still capable of doing something special. In 9th place, I have Everton. Now, yes, they have made some pretty big signings, and no, there is no European competition that they have to worry about, and maybe they could end up pushing a little further. But I just get the suspicion that they're just not going to be able to get ahead of some of the other teams that we have coming up. Alan looks like he could be a nice little signing for them as well. Maybe not little, he's a decent signing. The big star signing for them is James Rodriguez, but I'm just going to say it right now. I'm just going to put my neck out there. I am not sure James Rodriguez is going to be that great for him. And now we wait. I'm not saying he's going to be an absolute flop. I just don't know if he's going to meet the expectations that a lot of people have for him. In 8th place, we have Leicester City. Of course, this team looked like they were maybe going to get Champions League a little while ago, but didn't end up happening. They definitely overachieved last season for sure. They weren't the overachievers. Obviously, that belongs to Sheffield. But, with them in Europa League now, you wonder if that will play on their ability to get back up to a similar position in the table. They sold Chilwell. They dropped off a bit toward the end of last season, but a solid midfield with, of course, Ndidi, on top of that Tielemans as well. You wonder how long Vardy can continue to produce and perform for the team, similar to Southampton with Danny Ings. But yeah, 8th place for Leicester. In 7th, though, we're going to go with Wolverhampton Wanderers. This would mean, by the way, that Wolves had finished 7th last season as well. They finished 7th the season prior to that. So 3 Premier League seasons in a row, I'm predicting Wolves to finish in that 7th spot. They are the new Everton. Didn't really make any signings this transfer window, except for the one, and he only happened to be the club record signing, Portuguese, of course, Fabio Silva. I'm not exactly sure if he's going to be the guy, the striker up top for them with Raul Jimenez. I doubt that. I know that they have that sort of 3-5-2 formation, so you can have Silva and Jimenez up top if that is what they're going to go with. Would be a very exciting partnership to see. And it is a formation that's similar to Sheffield's 3-5-2, maybe a little bit different, but at the same time, it's a formation that has really been very effective in the Premier League in the last season or so. They've got a mix of young talent coming through that are continuing to get better, leaders in the team, maybe lack a little bit of depth for, a Premier League push and Europa League as well, but I guess it didn't particularly bother them all too much last season, so who knows? Now we move on, though, to the top 6, and in 6th place, it's going to be very familiar at the beginning. I'm going to go with Tottenham in that 6th place. I think I put them here last season as well. I think they have had some decent results under Jose, and I think Jose's doing an okay job, but I have a feeling that, that third season syndrome that Jose Mourinho has with his teams, I get the feeling it could be accelerated a little bit more this season for him. I think maybe not immediately, but halfway to at least 2/3 of the way in, we might potentially see some tension. Getting Kane back obviously is going to be big for them, and maybe if he really does fire, he can continue to push Tottenham as he has been for the last several years. But I get the suspicion that when Kane comes back, he may not be at his absolute peak the way that he was before, and he might not actually get back to that point. I definitely don't have him down as my Golden Boot winner. If he stays healthy, maybe, sure. But regardless, they've only really made 2 signings of Højbjerg and Doherty, which are good signings, of course, but not really massive game changers that I think could affect their position in the table. So Tottenham's in 6th, and their crosstown rivals, Arsenal, are going to be in 5th place for me. Obviously looking very fresh under Arteta, rejuvenated, winning titles, FA Cup, Community Shield, in great spirits, have to be. I spoke about how I think Harry Kane maybe is not going to be at his absolute best when he comes back. I'll tell you who I think is a bit of a shout maybe for the Golden Boot. I think it's Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang for me. I think he's going to get a lot of attention, or he's going to be quite responsible for the bulk of the goal scoring this season for Arsenal, and I think he could potentially have a big year. I get the feeling Arsenal will start reasonably well this season, given the fact that they've got a bit of momentum, good form and everything. Won a few titles, obviously, so they're up and about. I still have a suspicion that at some point this season, Arteta out will trend. It just will happen, but I would be shocked if he didn't see out the whole season. And now for the top 4. In 4th place, I have Manchester United. Now, let me just say as well, if Manchester United had got Jadon Sancho, and they may still because there is time, I probably would have had them above 3rd place. I'll tell you who 3rd place is soon. I think we all probably know, but I would have had them in 3rd if they had got Sancho. And on top of that, I might have just had them 3rd even if they didn't have Sancho, if their form over the last few seasons wasn't so damn erratic. Every 2 months, this Manchester United team is absolutely abysmal. It's awful, it's horrific, and then fast forward another 2 months later, and they're playing the absolute best that they possibly can. You know, they just need to put in a consistent effort across an entire season, and goddamn, if they played the best that they could throughout the entirety of the season, I'm not even joking when I think Manchester United have a team on paper that could win the Premier League. If they just delivered a consistently thorough performance, a very good high-level performance throughout an entire 38-game season, they could win the Premier League with this team right now. But I know they're not going to do that. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is going to, the form's going to dip a little bit at some point. Everyone's going to be like, oh, is Ole out again? And then they'll probably spark back up again, and everyone's like, oh, he's back at the wheel. It's rinse and repeat. But I have them in 4th. In 3rd place, I'm going to go with Chelsea. Invested very heavily, but I think we all know that. And I get the feeling that they're just going to get better as the season goes on, really. They're going to obviously be fantastic straight out of the gates, but I think they're going to get a bit more cohesive and they'll be playing a bit more together. And I think they may well could be one of the best teams, if not the best team in the Premier League by the end of the season. Whether they'll win the Prem, I'm not sure though. Pulisic is just genuinely could be a star. I'm not even joking. I'm getting shades of Hazard running down the wing in that Chelsea shirt toward the end of last season where he was unbelievable. He was almost arguably one of, if not the best player that came back from the restart. I was so incredibly impressed. I wasn't expecting it from him. They've got depth all over the park in so many different positions. They've had so many signings come in. So I just see Chelsea doing, I don't know, maybe not winning a Premier League title this season, but having a big season for sure. But now for the top 2. And ladies and gentlemen, I think the runners-up of the Premier League this season, I'm going to go Liverpool. Yep, I'm doing it. I think Liverpool will not go back-to-back. That is my prediction. Now, here is my explanation. Obviously, last season, I think a big factor with them winning the Premier League title was the fact that they made Anfield a fortress. They did not lose a game at Anfield. It was a tough place to go and an almost impossible place for some to go and get a win. And I genuinely think that they're going to lose that edge, what they had on top of a great team, but that atmosphere, with the fact that obviously no fans in the stadium, it's not going to have that same intimidating sort of feel. I think some of the better teams in the Premier League, and even maybe some mid-table teams, who knows, can go to Anfield now and think that, oh, well, this is just some empty stadium. It's not the same atmosphere. It's not the same feeling, when you're playing a Liverpool team in Anfield. And I think they will lose, I don't know how many games in Anfield, but they definitely won't be undefeated throughout the entire season. That is one little other smaller prediction. And I have a feeling that might potentially be what sort of tips, or one thing that tips it back in Manchester City's favour. I don't think Liverpool also was ruthless as they were sort of right before lockdown, where they were unbelievable, genuinely the best team in the world by far. Now, I don't know, definitely got to give that to Bayern Munich, but they definitely weren't as ruthless after the restart. I don't know if they'll still be, if they'll have gotten better since, but I don't know. Most of the players in that team are still in their bloody prime, for crying out loud. They could get Thiago, and in that midfield, oh my God, in that team, it would make it unbelievable, and who knows, but I think it's going to be a much tighter race between Liverpool and Manchester City, but I think Man City might pull it out. Let's face it, okay? Manchester City were very poor by their incredibly high standards last season. They haven't really made any major signings since either, of course. They got Nathan Ake, who's probably the biggest for, £40 million or something like that. He's good, but is he great in that back line? I guess he's immediately their second best centre-back. That's for sure walking in. alongside Aymeric Laporte when he's healthy. So I do have maybe my concerns over the defense, but that's the only concern I have because their midfield's unbelievable. Their front three, even after losing Sane, is very, very high quality as well. Kevin De Bruyne, Aguero, maybe a potential chance. Again, I keep talking about golden boots, but Aguero may be a chance. Sterling, Silva. I think a lot of people are getting on Sterling's back saying he hasn't been as good, but I tell you what, I think he's still a fine bloody player just because he missed an absolute sitter in the Champions League and I don't know, maybe wasn't as insane as he was 2 seasons ago, but I still think Man City are potentially the team that can go on and win it. The very, very, very small minor favourites for me. But yeah, I'm going with Manchester City to win the Premier League, even without Lionel Messi. They definitely improved after the restart, whereas with Liverpool, I think they didn't come back better. Man City definitely did. Bloody hell, they hammered Liverpool for crying out loud, so that gives them a little bit of a confidence boost going in next season too when they meet up. I just have to give it to Manchester City. They could end up winning the league by like a point, and I wouldn't even be surprised. Hell, it could go to goal difference, but I still think for me it's Man City, Liverpool. Chelsea could give them a bit of a push. Manchester United if they really do well, but that's going to be it for me. Manchester City champ. Alrighty then, we are done. Another Premier League prediction is in the books. Now, last season's was a bit meh. The season prior to that, I was very happy with. I wonder what type of... I wonder how the predictions will go this time around. I guess fast forward 9-10 months and we'll find out. Let me know, of course, what you think of my predictions. What would you change? Who are your predictions? Who do you think is going to win? And not only that, maybe tell me some of the small stuff. Who do you think is going to be Player of the Year? Who's going to win the Golden Boot? Who's going to have the most, I don't know, clean sheets? Tell me what you think. What's coming up for us in this very interesting COVID-19 Premier League season? Thank you all for watching so much. If you have not already, make sure you like and subscribe, especially if you're looking forward to FIFA 21, because in a few days from now, I will be uploading my first FIFA 21 videos, and I'm not even kidding, like in about 2 or 3 days, maybe even sooner. Get ready for it, people. Till the next time, have a good one. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Catch you later, and bye-bye.